As we're currently awaiting the news on whether or not Donald Trump will be indicted today, I think we can go over some of the updates on what's happening. We got a bunch of statements from politicians. Lindsey Graham saying it's going to blow up the country. Rand Paul is calling for the indictment of Alvin Bragg, or at least an investigation, for abuse of power. Police are being deployed in New York City and in Washington, D.C. They are preparing for mass unrest. You've probably seen a lot of these updates. But admittedly, slow news day, slow news morning. And I think the reason is everybody has their TVs turned on and they are just waiting to hear about Donald Trump. And I will be fair. Look, there's a bunch of stories I have prepped. There's war stories. There's weird Democrat trans kid stories. But I don't know why. I mean, this I feel like is the most important story right now. And giving a breakdown update on what's happening, I think matters. Because if Donald Trump is indicted, it is unprecedented. We don't know how they're even going to do it. What do you do? When you bring him to jail, do the Secret Service agents go in the jail with him to protect him from general population? It's nonsensical. I don't know how we do it. However, there is a really interesting Twitter account, several, that believe it is the prophesized prophecy is coming true. I'll put it that way. And they don't know whether or not Trump is the Antichrist or, in fact, the Christ. And I'm pretty sure he's neither. I'm pretty sure it's just politics. But there's a bunch of funny things that I think are worth pointing out that they highlight. Now, of course, I want to go over the news and talk about the reality of what happens when you arrest a former president and frontrunner for the 2024 election. But I also want to have some fun as we await the news to figure out whether or not he will actually be indicted. So before I read to you about the, actual political consequences here, I want to show you what some accounts are saying. And it is a bit unfair because it's not like it's the most prominent thing in the world to hear this. I just think it's absolutely fascinating and fun. So join me now as we deep dive into the story of how Donald Trump may or may not be the Antichrist or the Christ, as we decide whether or not his persecution at the hands of the global elite signals some kind of prophesized coming of a hero figure to save us all. So, of course, the police are being deployed everywhere. Rand Paul's made his statements. Take a look at this thread from Donnie Darkened. He writes, and shout out to Sovereign Bra. We had him on the Culture War podcast last Friday, and he brought this up to me, and I think it's very interesting. Donnie Darkin says, there are reports that they are preparing a felony indictment and arrest for Donald Trump as soon as next week. If that's true, Donald Trump predicted his arrest just as Jesus did. Oh, really? Folks, I'm putting out the very bizarre parallels and comparisons between Donald Trump and Jesus Christ. They're not by accident. Even Trump's grandmother's maiden name is Christ, of countless other connections. I love this. The Antichrist is Satan's imitation Christ. He is the false savior of the world, the political leader that the Jews rejected Christ in hopes of, the one who comes in his own name. I don't know if things will go down exactly like this or not, but things have been heading in a particular direction for quite some time, very unnoticed to most people. Full stop. Let's talk about the interesting things that are happening today. It is March 22nd, and I absolutely love this. Did you know that March 22nd is National Donald Day? Yes, it is National Donald Day. Oh, come on. If they indict him, okay, maybe they don't even do it. That's why it was funny yesterday when they were like, they're going to indict him tomorrow. And then we had these other accounts point out like, that's National Donald Day. Look it up. I love this one, too. This Twitter user, Drew, was getting retweets. And you've got the Nazi Totenkopf, I believe is what it's called. I could be wrong. The skull and crossbones. And it says 322. The Georgia Guidestones were officially opened March 22nd. And March 22nd is National Donald Day. And they said this in response to Disclosed TV, saying Donald Trump is expected to be indicted tomorrow. Okay. And what's this? It is the 322nd week since he became president. All right. I'll say fair point in that regard. It is very weird that they're saying he will be indicted today National Donald Day, for whatever reason, it is, whatever. The Guidestones were erected on those days, and it's the 322nd week since he was first elected. So, I don't know, numerology stuff I find silly because there's finite numbers. Of course, you can find number correlations all over the place, but the National Donald Day thing I do find really funny. All right, let's read this thread and have a good silly morning as we await the news. I don't know if things will go down like this or not. It's been unnoticed. No one can deny that one of the biggest appeals of Trump is that he is heavily targeted and persecuted by the elites in power. I believe we are witnessing an imitation of Christ's persecution prior to his death, resurrection, and ascension. The Antichrist is typically seen as a figure who is an outright discernibly evil man who the elites will overtly support. But I believe Antichrist means in place of Christ rather than against Christ. Look, that right there kind of ruins it for me. What's happening with all this stuff is people try to create a reason why things should make sense. Actually, if Trump is following the path of Christ, it's because he's the Antichrist. Okay, dude. You can't just do that. You can't deus ex machina your theories. He says, I may be very wrong, but it seems that Trump will soon face his Pontius Pilate and be led to his cross to suffer in sacrifice for the people. However, in this story, I believe the people will rise up in protest and possibly ignite civil unrest at his defense. First, the election was stolen from him. Now, just before the next election, he is heavily targeted with criminal accusations and possibly even arrested. This will energize his base more than ever. I think they're speaking facetiously, or I think what they're trying to say is Donald Trump claims the persecution of having an election stolen from him. This will energize his base more than ever. And the false preachers and charlatans will be praying and prophesying for their anointed. I do not know exactly how this will all go down, but we can expect Trump and his movement to somehow be the spear that takes down the current order. I don't understand why you're saying that's all a bad thing, to be honest. When this occurs, the new age will be ushered, and there will be peace and safety, as it is written in 1 Thessalonians 5:3. Again, I'm no prophet. I don't know anything for sure, but everything is seeming to line up exactly as I suspected in lieu of all the evidences presented thus far. I truly hope I am wrong, and these are not the times of the end as I would love for nothing more than to enjoy the rest of my life with my wife and children and the beautiful life we have built together. But I find it very hard to ignore these signs. As I always say, let's see what happens. Now, look, I'll be the first. I'll just come out and say it. Yeah. Should I really be reading some internet thread that says these crazy things about Trump? In a news context, probably not. But I'll put it this way. This is the most important story right now. Donald Trump is the front runner. You have these crazy theories and wild theories. And if you look at it from that perspective, there's an interesting thing to be said about everything that's happened with Trump and what is happening. And Donald Trump's name means herald of the world ruler. I did not make that up. Someone else pointed it out. And I thought it was hilarious. To clarify, Donald is, I believe, Scottish Gaelic for world ruler. And Trump means the trumpeting sound. It means to trump. That's literally what it means. It means trump, right? So a trumpet trumps. It is the sound that heralds the something. So when someone is entering a room and the trumpets play, things like that, or for victory, the fanfare and things like that. So it could quite literally be interpreted as herald of the world ruler. That might mean that Donald Trump is not himself the world ruler. But Lindsey Graham has made a statement, and he's right. He says that Trump being arrested could blow up our country. Could? Will. It absolutely will. It's a simple statement he said on Fox. He just said, look, it's going to blow up our country and it's a bunch of BS. It's rather passive. Not a fan of the guy, but it will. It will blow up this country. And here's where the moves are starting to be made. Rand Paul calls for DA Alvin Bragg to be jailed for disgusting abuse of power in Trump probe. Rand Paul ripped into Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg on Tuesday over his handling of the criminal investigation into Trump that might lead to the former president being indicted. A Trump indictment would be a disgusting abuse of power. The DA should be put in jail. Paul is the latest Republican to accuse Bragg of leading a politically motivated investigation into Trump, blah, blah, blah. House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan and Oversight Chairman James Comer wrote to the Democratic Manhattan DA on Monday, calling his plans to charge Trump an unprecedented abuse of prosecutorial authority. The two lawmakers stopped short of Paul's demand that Bragg be jailed, but asked the prosecutor to hand over documents and testify about what plainly appears to be a politically motivated prosecution of the ex-commander-in-chief. Yeah, as pointed out yesterday, we had Rep. Troy Nails on, and he said that no one knew who Alvin Bragg was until he did this. He campaigned to go after Trump. Now he's going after Trump, and nobody had ever heard his name before. But now, he is across all these news stories and in the press like crazy. Trump himself, who announced over the weekend that he expected to be arrested on Tuesday, has accused Bragg of prosecutorial misconduct and interference with an election. Last November, Trump declared that he would be running for president in 2024. Investigate the investigators, the former president wrote in a Truth Social post on Sunday. Even Trump's top potential 2024 GOP presidential primary rival has criticized Bragg for his efforts to charge the former president. While indicating that he wouldn't get involved in any way, DeSantis said, George Soros on a prosecutor, blah, blah, blah. You get it. And we're saying more and more with the quotes. So this is a tough one. I'm going through the news and we're seeing a lot about this story. Everyone is waiting with bated breath to learn about what will happen. But I got to be honest, I think the average person does not care at all. This is the challenge. I know that people probably don't care. I could talk about, I'll tell you, if I made a video talking about women in dating, then I'd probably get way more views because those cultural videos do really well. I don't make videos just based on what I think will do well. I do videos based on what I think it's important for you to know about. And admittedly, the talking about Trump Antichrist stuff is just mostly about something fun to add a little bit of flavor to the story as we're sitting here waiting. But one thing I can tell you is I'm not entirely convinced that Trump supporters are going to do anything. In this story from Newsweek, they write, Donald Trump's call for protests over arrest backfires spectacularly. Huh? Okay, to be fair, nobody went out and protested. I mean, some people did, but for the most part, they didn't. But also, he's not been indicted yet. What's going to happen? Here's what Newsweek says. Donald Trump's calls for his supporters to protest have backfired as clips of those wishing to see him found guilty have gone viral. Over the weekend, writing on social media platform Truth Social, Trump said he would be arrested. According to media reports, blah, blah, blah. While there's no official word or timeline for his potential indictment or arrest, it is unclear why Trump gave Tuesday as the date it would happen. Hours after his post, a spokesperson for Trump issued a statement saying Trump did not write his post with any direct knowledge of the time of any arrest. Trump's post predicting his arrest on Tuesday dismissed his possible legal troubles and called for supporters to protest and take our nation back. Here we have everyone's favorite Aaron Rupar saying, Trump called for protests, but outside Trump Tower right now are demonstrations calling for his arrest. Yes, because it's New York City. What do you think? It's New York MAGA country? These people are insane. Many of his critics were seen with signs, blah, blah, blah. A rival group of Trump supporters were also seen outside his building. Trump shared these pictures to his Truth Social page. His supporters stood with American flags and banners that claimed Trump won. According to a report by Time, the pro-Trump demonstration outside the Manhattan court where Trump would be arraigned was organized by the New York Young Republican Club and was made up of about 50 people. Nobody cares. I know. I'm sorry, man. I know that nobody cares. That's the challenge. I'm like, man, do we talk about China and Russia? We got that story. And I'm like, everyone, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just felt like we have to be here to address where we're currently at. Because when the hammer drops and Donald Trump is indicted, this country will be irrevocably damaged and irreversibly changed for the worse. And I hope you all are paying attention. You know, I've had people say like, Tim's harping on the story too much. And I'm just like, I think it's the most important story of our generation. The arrest on false charges of a former president and current frontrunner never happened before in this country. They want to mention Telegram groups and other blah, 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 blah. So I guess we'll wait and see. We'll see if the Republicans do anything. They probably won't. Rand Paul calling for this guy to be arrested is powerful, fine, but nothing's going to happen. What's going to happen is Democrats will continue to wield power to the destruction of this country as they beat you down mercilessly, figuratively, and say to your face, they will destroy this nation before they stop. And you know what's going to happen? The right will continually just give in. Look, man, last night we had Rep. Troy Nails on talking about 2020, and he was saying he thinks it was stolen from Trump and all that stuff. And I get frustrated with that all the time. The first reason is that the narrative demoralizes Trump supporters, independents, and conservatives. It tells them you can't win. It tells them we don't know why and we have no solution. It tells them they're cheating and we can't win. Stop. It's just so annoying. Stop being a defeatist. Stop claiming these people have ballot harvesting. I watch people like Scott Pressler actually go out and win. Registering new voters, winning. Him talking about ballot harvesting and creating the strongest ballot harvesting operation because he sees it and he knows. And then you get these people who are sitting back being like, we can't win because they're cheating. And I'm like, stop. We are trying so desperately hard. It's like, imagine this. Imagine there's a burning building. You're standing outside of it. And you see someone like Scott Pressler spraying a fire hose into the building. And then you've got these other people standing outside the house being like, what's the point? The fire's too strong. Can't win anyway. And I'm like, dude, can you try to help? Can you stop saying the fire has destroyed the house? There's nothing we can do about it. Can you figure out what caused the fire? What is making the fire worse? Because we can all see it. The procedural changes, the policy changes. We can see the Democrat arsonists who are destroying the house that we are trying to live in. And we are trying to counter it. I am. I don't understand why Georgia wasn't a powerful lesson for all of these Trump supporters. Whether it's true or not about 2020, a man stood outside and said he wouldn't vote because the Democrats cheated and it didn't matter anyway. And then the Democrats took the Senate. And then you get these Republicans being like, I just don't understand at all why in 2022 we lost the midterms. Okay, they won the House. They actually lost the Senate. It got worse. And they narrowly and barely took back the House. And they're like, wow, it sure was close that Lauren Boebert almost lost. I wonder how that could be. And I'm sitting here screaming, ballot harvesting, COVID emergency rules were codified permanently. They're sending out universal mail-in ballots. They're not changing these things. It is going to get worse. And they're like, no, they cheated. And I'm like, dude, legislation came through to create universal mail-in voting so that the ballot harvesters could go collect these ballots. That's how they did it. They are saying that's how they did it. And then you got these GOP guys being like, no, they cheated. And I'm like, are you saying that the ballot harvesting was cheating because they did it through legal means? My point is this. We are witnessing untold abuses of power. With Carrie Lake, the ballots are printed on the wrong paper and she's suing. And they're like, they cheated. And I'm like, okay, stop. Stop saying that it is generic, does not describe anything, and it's demoralizing. It is demoralizing. But whatever. I still have these Trump supporters, and, you know, even many of you probably follow me, who are commenting saying things like, just accept it, Tim. Why won't you just say it? And I'm like, okay, dude, look, if you want to lose, I don't care. It's frustrating to me because I feel like Sisyphus pushing that boulder uphill, trying so hard just to get it done. And there are people who are nipping at my ankles and whacking me. And it's not, and I'm not trying to act like I'm the deity or anything. No, or the figure. Tons of people are doing everything in their power while you have people sniping at the ankles being like, nope, stop, nope. And you're like, dude, you're making it worse. We're trying so hard, man. It's so frustrating because you look at what happened after 2020, and it was this insane narrative about, you know, Germany and servers and China and all that stuff. And I get people saying like, yes, Tim, those crazies did exist, but we're saying this, that, or otherwise. And I'm like, full stop. I understand that you are saying rigged and cheated and all that. And I am telling you, as a method of persuasion, you are destroying your chances to stop them and to help Trump win in 2024. And I don't get why people don't get it. They would rather be victims. They would rather sit back and be like, we got cheated, than to be like, look what they're doing, look how they're doing it, look how they did it, and let's fight back. Don't tell people you got cheated, because that demoralizes people. Tell people the Democrats used COVID emergency policy to implement universal mail-in voting and then engage in ballot harvesting. And it's very legal in like 35 states. And that is how Biden got those votes. And then they say, yeah, but they weren't doing signature verification, not fraud. So you're saying that when they were looking at ballots, they decided these signatures were okay? Okay, well, then what are you going to do about it? It's not about being cheated. It's about you needing to understand the rules by which you are playing the game. And people don't know or don't care or whatever. They would rather sit back in the persecution narrative of Democrats cheated. It's the only explanation. Everyone loves Trump, blah, 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 plug my ears. We're watching the abuse of power right now. We get it. Call it whatever you want, fine. But I am telling you, I am someone who didn't vote for Trump in 2016, who voted for him in 2020, and it is the most infuriating thing to hear fraud, 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 fraud. It makes me not want to vote for Trump. It makes my friends not want to vote for Trump, and the Trump supporters don't get it. A year ago, I was saying I was going to support DeSantis because I cannot stand Trump whinging like a baby about fraud. Okay, are you mad at me because you don't like how I'm describing it? Understand how I feel. If you want my vote, Trump's got your vote. He doesn't have mine because I'm sick of hearing about it. It's this whiny, whingy baby. Trump was cheated. Don't care. Literally don't care. What are you going to do about it? I don't want a whiny baby who's complaining that they got cheated. I want someone who's going to stand up and say they may be playing dirty, but we're going to play harder, 10 times better, 10 times stronger, and we're going to take it back. They didn't do it in 2022. That's what I see with all this stuff. Anyway, look, here's my point. If we're going to win by saying we know the game, we know the rules, and we'll play it better. Donald Trump said it himself. That's why I'm leaning towards voting for Trump, plus the East Palestine stuff. But when Trump came out and said we're going to be ballot harvesters, I said he's finally getting it. That's what I want to hear. I'll leave it there. It's a silly segment. I don't know, whatever. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see y'all then.